my investigators, we look at it, and clearly there's things in there that are very concerning to our investigative team. So we hope that by releasing the actual note, we'll get some response from the community.
Did the Guthrie family know you'd be releasing?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Did the Guthrie family know you'd be releasing?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, they asked for it. Today, let's analyze the original Nancy Guthrie ransom note. I'm Deception Detective, an attorney trained in statement analysis. This channel exposes lies and manipulation, so if that's your thing, hit subscribe. For early access to new videos and over 80 exclusive videos, consider becoming a channel member. Link in description. There's an entire field of statement analysis dedicated to identifying anonymous authors. It's called forensic linguistics, and it uses everything from syntax to vocabulary to demographics. But before we grab our calculators, we need to answer this. Do we even care who wrote this note? In other words, is it actually from someone who kidnapped Nancy Guthrie? Or is it a hoax from an opportunistic scammer on the other side of the globe? Or even someone just trying to make Nancy's disappearance look like a kidnap for ransom? 5 months ago, when all we knew about this note was that it was sent to the press, had multiple deadlines, and contained no proof of life, I was betting on the latter. Now that I actually have it, I'm convinced. So let's read it together and count all the red flags. Subject, news tip. And we're already off to a bad start here because this note, as you can see, was sent through a newspaper's online tip form. It wasn't sent directly to the Guthrie family by text or email, which would have at least let the author attach some sort of photo proof that they had Nancy, nor was it left at the scene of the crime, which would at least prove that they had access to Nancy's house. Even physical mail to the news would have been better than this because it would have at least allowed them to include some sort of physical proof that they had Nancy, like a lock of hair, or something even more grotesque just to prove that they're serious. And on that note of seriousness, look at the subject line, news tip. At a news station, this would practically guarantee that this message goes to the bottom of the pile. As I've said since day one, I would expect someone who actually went through all the effort of breaking into Nancy's house undetected, kidnapping her, setting up an anonymous Bitcoin wallet, would not leave the ransom demand being read to chance. It shouldn't have to be said, but again, the main priority of a kidnapper who kidnaps someone for ransom is collecting their ransom. It's the one thing they don't leave to chance. I need to tell them to give me my money, where to give my money, and when. Now, maybe this is an amateur kidnapper, but I think more than ever as we continue reading this that it's a hoax. So let's continue reading. Question or comment. Hello, Savannah. We have your mother, Nancy. She is safe but scared. She will be held for ransom, and once payment is received, she will be released unharmed. We will be holding her for a maximum of 7 days. You will need to send Bitcoin in the amount of 4 million USD before 5 p.m. on Thursday the 5th. If payment is not received, the ransom will be increased to 6 million USD, which will need to be paid by 5 p.m. on Monday the 9th. Alright, I'm pausing here to point out yet another glaring red flag, and this is the same one we've seen in the JonBenét Ramsey case. In that ransom note, the supposed kidnapper told the Ramseys they wanted their money by tomorrow. The only problem was there was no way for them to distinguish what tomorrow actually meant because the Ramseys supposedly found the note in the morning when it could have been written after midnight or before midnight. In other words, it's one of the main reasons I think that note is a hoax. Because again, as I said, a kidnapper's number one priority is getting their money. It's the entire point of the crime, so they don't leave the delivery date, time, or location up to chance or interpretation. In this case, it's not as bad as the JonBenét one because they do at least name a day of the week, but the 5 p.m. is pretty vague when the person it's addressed to could be in another state. So is it 5 p.m. for Savannah, or is it 5 p.m. wherever this news station is located? Or is it 5 p.m. in Tucson where Nancy was taken from? Or is it 5 p.m. wherever this kidnapper happens to be now, which, by the way, they imply later in the same message is not Tucson anymore. Again, these are the sort of slip-ups that someone pretending to be a kidnapper wouldn't care about, but an actual kidnapper would. Okay, let's continue because this is one of the biggest red flags of all. If payment is not received, the ransom will be increased to 6 million USD, which will need to be paid by 5 p.m. on Monday the 9th. Once payment is received to the Bitcoin address below, she'll be released within 12 hours of deposit to a safe drop-off location back in Tucson. Like I said, they seem to indicate that they're not in Tucson anymore, so what do they mean by 5 p.m.? If payment is not received by the last deadline on Monday the 9th at 5 p.m., she will be killed. Your mother is aware of this and her life is in your hands. When you owe the bank money and you can't pay it back on time, they charge you interest, maybe penalty fees, maybe they ding your credit score. And they do all those things because they can't force you to pay up by torturing your mother. Kidnappers, on the other hand, can, which is why the threats that they make don't involve penalties, fees, and other sorts of benign punishments. They involve violence, specifically violence to the loved one that they've kidnapped. To put it another way, I don't think the person who wrote this note actually has Nancy Guthrie because they're not threatening to do anything to Nancy Guthrie. The threats they're making are the type of threats you make when you have zero leverage. If that last line were all I knew about this author, I would think they're a hoaxer. And even without this information, I did think they were a hoaxer very early on in the investigation, since day one. But the craziest part is we're only halfway through and it gets worse. So let's continue reading. And again, if you're not convinced this is a hoaxer because of the method of delivery, which was completely unserious, or the threats, which are also completely unserious, or even the priorities like actually collecting their money, which seem to be an afterthought, maybe this next detail will convince you. Let's keep reading. If payment is not received by the last deadline on Monday the 9th at 5 p.m., she will be killed. Your mother is aware of this and her life is in your hands. It is in the best interest of everyone to have this completed as soon as possible. You will not be able to contact me from here on out. There will be no negotiation. Do not play games. Law enforcement will not be able to help you. At the bottom of the note, almost as an afterthought, she had a white smartwatch on the floor of the foot of her bed and the white floodlight in the backyard was destroyed. Again, this note wasn't left at the scene of the crime, which would prove that the author is actually the person who took Nancy or at least had access to her house. It contains no photos, right? It wasn't sent by email directly to the family where they could show photo evidence that they actually had Nancy. The threats suggest that they don't have Nancy because all the threats are the same sort of penalties a rent-a-center would impose on you, not someone who actually has your mother and is dangerous enough to kidnap her and torture her. And the details here that they provide supposedly to prove that they have her or at least were in her house seem to be things that anyone, even on the other side of the world, for example, a Nigerian Bitcoin scammer, could find by simply Googling her. She had a white smartwatch and her exterior white floodlight in the backyard was destroyed. As I said earlier, the police also released a second note at the same time as this one, which apparently is written by the same author.
The department released 2 ransom notes. Why now?
So if you want me to analyze that next, let me know by liking, commenting, and sharing. Check the end screen for my analysis of the JonBenet Ramsey ransom note, as well as my entire Nancy Guthrie playlist. Until next time, stay true.